Well, welcome back, everyone. So, okay. So now we're going to, I want to start with giving you an overview of where we're going. Kim, so where are these people? Where am I looking?
Oh, you look at the
Screen?
laptop.
Okay, sorry. I have so many options to look. I don't know where to look. I should go and move you guys this way.
Such a complicated question, where are they?
That's why we came to the index. Okay, so, all right, now I've located this. Okay, so, anyway, welcome back. I'm really so glad to have all of you today and for this next couple of days. So, what I'd like to do in the next 4 days is have this, it's a journey. It's a journey into the exploration of light. What does that mean? In the Buddhist context. So obviously this is by no means a comprehensive study. We have only 4 days, so that's not much time. But it's just a taste actually from 3 interrelated Zen masters. And we'll be looking at them, and we'll start with excerpts from, okay, I can talk loud, maybe. Dainen Katagiri Roshi, from the teachings from the Buddha himself, actually. That's where it's great. And also, Dogen, I'm gonna forget, Ehe Dogen. So those are the 3 main ones. And so over the 3 days, the first 3 days, we'll be talking about what those guys have to say about light and other things. And then on the 4th day, we'll be looking at about what we think. How do we interpret our practice? And what does it look like? And how does it relate to life? So that's it overall. So just to give you a little bit. So Dainen Katagiri Roshi is talking about, I use the book primarily, The Light That Shines Through Infinity. So he's talking about writing that. So I'll be talking about some of his definitions and some of the things that he talks about in there. And so we'll get a sense of what this dynamic energy, original energy is, life energy, which is present throughout the universe and in which it creates and sustains our lives, as it constantly is flowing and unfolding. So we'll get an idea of that. And on Friday, we'll be continuing on with the Buddha's last teaching entitled Be a Light Unto Yourself. And that's a pretty well known one. And then we'll look at a couple of people that have written about that particular teaching. So we'll look at that. And then on Saturday, we'll go to, I think all roads lead to Dogen. And so we'll be looking at Dogen and specifically his teachings on Zazen. And, well, we'll be looking at the Fukan Zazen tree, which we read this morning. It's a long piece, but it pretty well covers a lot of stuff. So anyway, we'll be looking at that. And then finally, as I said, we'll be discussing our own, how we experience our practice and negotiation and praying, and how the light relates to that. So, so that's the overall view for the next coming days. And then in the afternoons, we'll be doing experiential exercises, which is, people who have been with me before know do this shifting, so we'll be doing, we'll see how that works, doing some shifting around that, so we get a better sense of what particularly Padova's talking about, what everyone's talking about. They're all coming from the same place. And get an idea of where they're coming from. So, that's what you're in for. So, let's start with Danon category Roshi. So, first of all, I always like to talk about when people existed in their human form, and so we get a kind of an idea of where in the world were they and what time. So, Katagiri was born in 1928 and passed in 1990. He is originally from Japan. He's a Soto Zen teacher and priest. He founded was the abbot of the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center in Minneapolis. That was from 1972 till his death in 1990. He also founded another Zen practice community in Minnesota, the Hokyo-ji Zen Practice Center. Prior to that, he studied Buddhist studies, he became a priest, and then he was sent by the Soto headquarters office in Japan to Los Angeles, California, to serve as a priest at the Zen-Suchi Soto Zen Mission. So that's how he got to the States. And then in '65, he was sent to Sokoji Soto Zen Mission in San Francisco to assist Suzuki Roshi. And then later he helped out San Francisco Zen Center, and which shared the building with the Sokoji until 1969. And then from 1969 on, he worked a lot with Suzuki Roshi. So that's kind of his background. He authored several books, Return to Silence, and Each Moment is the Universe, and then This Light That Shines Through Infinity. And it's the last one, as I said before, that I'll be talking about. So, this is taken from Katagiri, where it says that, the scriptures are all talking about turning your delusion into enlightenment. Or they want to guide ordinary people into becoming holy people or Buddhas. And you can reach nirvana by removing delusion, or you can attain wisdom and compassion by eliminating your ego, or you become a Buddha by sitting, burning incense and chanting, etc. So those are kind of the thought that a lot of people have about what the practice is actually about. But as Katagiri says, as you probably will all know, anybody who's been practicing for a long, is that getting rid of your ego is not very easy. To remove your desires and your delusions, it's a hard road. So it's good to look at what the scriptures are actually saying. What are they really saying? So Katagiri suggests that spiritual practice is actually about aligning ourselves with this ever-present life force that you are. It's kind of an interesting take. He's got a really unusual take. I mean, in the end, he's very similar to a lot of people, but the way he expresses it is very different. Anyway, so Shakyamuni Buddha taught that a magnificent event is unfolding right now. It's true. In every aspect of your life. Oh, there we go, silence is going. Okay, so anyway, vivid living energy is constantly at work in creating and supporting our lives, as I said before. And it's like a fire that is eternal and boundless. So whoever you are, whatever you do, your life is very precious because the original energy of life is working in your life. Now, what is this original energy of life? Katagiri says that it's the Buddha. That's interesting, I've never heard that before. So the original energy of life is Buddha. And so the Dharma he describes as the great original energy, how it functions, the functioning of this energy. And so the Dharma is really hard to talk about, and we never really can say exactly what it is with words, because it's inconceivable, actually, to the ordinary mind. Nonetheless, it's alive within us, and we can use this energy to, it's what Katagiri says, I think this is a great line, burn the flame of your life force in everything you do. So I translate that as, is this a lot poetic, but doing everything that you do it wholeheartedly, no matter what it is. So that's the Dharma. Dharma is the truth, it's existence, it's the Buddha way. It's the truth, and it's us. It's us. So, in doing a spiritual practice, then, is to invoke this life force that's deep within us, to invoke it into our own life and use it to grow our life. Now, what does that mean, to grow our life? So, to expand our life in another way through the Dharma, it gives us more space. When we're growing, we're gaining more space to cultivate wisdom and compassion, love and generosity. Different traditions of this. So in particular, in Zen, spiritual practice, what we're doing is just sitting. So really it isn't so passive, actually. It's sitting based on deepening our intellectual and experiential understanding of our existence, moment to moment. And after studying and sitting, you accept that your life is already present in the big scale of everything, the universal scale. So we study the teachings to go deeper into our life, and we discover that our original place is the place where all beings live together in peace before we exist as individual beings. It's just so lovely. Our original place where all beings live together in peace before we exist as individual beings. So from that place, you can join the flow of life, living in harmony with all beings and walking hand in hand. So, if it's not already obvious, I think of that as the place before we exist as individual beings. It's before we latch on to personality, before we latch on to identity, before we latch on to all that stuff that makes a self. It's before that. So we sit in Zazen, when we sit completely in peace and harmony with others. And we practice to carry the same energy out into the world, this dynamic, original energy. And this is the guideline for Buddhist practice and study. So people from any religion can practice this same thing. It's really just a matter when one becomes aware of this magnificent energy of being that rises in your body and mind, and one feels alive. And you feel boundless and broad, compassionate and kind. And this is a guideline for living as a human being. So, I'll go back to the terms. So category, the term Buddha is understood as the original energy of life, the life force, original energy. Dharma is understood as truth of the ultimate principle of existence, that is, the functioning of the Buddha way. So this original energy of life constantly flows and is working all the time in our lives every day. And I see that too as the idea of life as it is. That's this energy, you know. We don't like how things go sometimes, a lot of times. But you can see it as it's life doing its own thing. It's this original energy that's moving through everything. That's what's happening. It's doing its thing. So, so this means, so this is, as I said before, Dharma is us because we contain, you know, we have that energy, so therefore we're the Buddha. And so it means that the form of our life is identical with the original energy. So the truth is you, the truth is your real self. And so depending on, you can depend on yourself is to depend on the Dharma. And this is very important because that means that the Dharma is not separate from the human life. We're not trying to, this isn't a perfection project, a spiritual practice. It's based in our human life as we are, in our humanness. So, practice is a way of life based on the fact that truth is already alive in our lives and we can depend on it. And so we touch the core of our lives and discover a life worth living. Again, it's the natural state of your life before any thoughts or ideas arise. This is real truth. This is the realization of reality. I talked about that a week ago, almost 2 weeks ago, in the inquiry about having the direct experience of reality. And this all figures in that. So you directly experience pure energy as the core of your being, and you realize that you can always depend on it. And if you depend on Dharma, the Buddha's way, pure energy will arise and appear in your everyday life. It will illuminate your life because the original energy as Buddha is alive within you. So, and this is where the light comes in. That energy gives forth its own light, and it's shining from your whole body, which others can see. So there's a quote here by Katagiri that he's always telling people. So relax your frontal lobe, relax your mind, calm your mind, and practice dwelling peacefully with the Dharma that is working deeply in your own life. It's already doing it. So there's a question, is what is everybody's life? And this actually goes back to Doga. Doga talks about this, but Katagiri talks about it too, so I'll bring it up here. Everybody's light, according to Doga, it could be anything, everything's light. So he starts with your nose. Your nose it's your light. It's anything in your life is considered your light. It's just part of it. It's like your life is, your light is everything that's associated with you. It's anything. So it could be, as I say, your nose, it could be your house, your job, your body, your routine schedule, because that's all part of it. It's the expansion of what we are. We're not just what we ordinarily think of. I'm just this person, and I think this, and I eat this. It's how you move into the world, what all the connections that you have. Because light is the original nature of your life. It's just so important to think about it that way. And everyone has that. Everyone has that light, and it's important to understand that light is already within us, and that I was talking about your own light earlier, which was a wrong statement actually. I mentioned it the first thing. It's like the light is contained within us, all around us. And we don't feel it. We don't know that we have it. Why? Because we're hiding from it. We hide from who we are. We hide from our shame. We hide from our fear. We separate. It shuts down the light. It shuts down the light when we do that. So this practice, the spiritual practice, is about us working with things to let go of all the things that we seem to be afraid of. It takes time. We don't do this in a day, obviously. But working with things to let go. So it's hard to know what it is, this light, but it's nothing but energy, motion, or dynamic functioning. And if you try to conceptualize it, it looks dim and dark because your original nature can't see it that way. It can't be conceptualized. So in order to understand it, you have to cut off the knowing and seeing and forget gain and loss, and become purified, naked, and perfectly at ease. And each and every one of us must investigate his or her own light. Just to study that. But for the time being, just be the functioning of your light right now without attaching to it. So it's just Suzuki Roshi talked about how sometimes when, say we're carrying something and all of a sudden it drops, breaks. And so we have an opinion about that a lot of times. Why did I do that? So stupid. And he says that when we do that kind of thing, we cut off, we shut things down. In this case, we're cutting off the light when we've gone back to self. Come back to self to criticize and it's really easy to do that stuff, but it cuts off the light. And so it's just a new practice to kind of let that stuff go. And Suzuki Roshi says just, it broke, keep on going. Just keep on going. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Okay. So we can practice hard, but always remember that a spiritual being is something you can find right now. And it's right here. And it's in each of us. And all spiritual beings, we all have light. And that light is our great human capacity. Beyond your human speculation, you are already great because of whatever you may do. Whenever wherever you may be, where the light is working for you. This is called the light of self. The whole world in the 10 directions is the light of self. So this is again Dogen, which is an expansive, expansive way of looking at things. But you and the whole world were born together. That's kind of the idea. When you come online, everything is born. And so you're connected to everything, the causes and conditions of that moment that you were born. So you were born, again, another Dogen statement or metaphor. You were born simultaneous with mountains, rivers, and the whole universe, and through the function of independent co-arising. Mountains, although we think mountains are steady things, they're hard. They don't move much. But in actuality, they're constantly changing. They're in the process of birth. If you understand mountains that way, you understand that your life is simultaneously there. Think about a mountain and everything that's on a mountain and everything that's breaking down and feeding other creatures, from logs to trees to branches to there's a whole universe there. And day by day, moment by moment, your life exactly coexists with mountains and rivers. It can't be separated. This is actually your everyday life. In the deeper sense, everyday life is the great source of the flow of life energy, digesting everything and producing new life. The gate of this everydayness is opening and closing at the moment. The gates of myriad beings are opening and closing at the moment. This is a continuous stream of life energy, and it's called continuous practice. And in the realm of continuous practice, there is a great opportunity. You can see the universe coming up as one whole, like a television. But the screen is the self. Your true self is not separated from others. It is interconnected and constantly working with others in the huge universe. The functioning of the whole world is the light of the self. Because light is working from moment to moment, the whole world constantly manifests itself as the human world. At the time, the whole world is within the light of the self. So accept your life is the whole world and take good care of yourself. And realize that yourself is the whole world. So we take care of the whole world. Your life is moving with the whole universe. You don't notice it until you dance wholeheartedly. You can feel the energy coming up. And when you act with sincerity and a warm heart, there is a great opportunity, a very subtle opportunity, to invite the whole world into your life. If you act with the whole world, light appears in your everyday life. Then your compassion is transmitted to somebody else. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. Let me see how I frame this. So just as we speak of in our practice of not to, on an individual level, what your talk points to is a sense I've had, and that science is actually proving out, in that we are not two in terms of anything else that exists, not limited to the world, but to the cosmos, all of it. And again, not to get into the detail of it, I heard this phenomenal talk last night that you and I may talk about in practice.
Oh boy.
And so it's a not two on two levels is what I'm hearing, both in what you're saying, that we are, in addition to dependent, coexisting and co-arising, and not two in ourselves. It's just like a three-dimensional chess game. It's also a not two on a cosmic level. Is that all consistent with Buddhist practice?
Gee whiz. I don't see why it would be.
Why it would or wouldn't?
Well, I can't see why it wouldn't be consistent.
I'll take that as an answer. Yeah. I don't either, Laurie, but I wondered if maybe I was having constructive thinking, limited thinking. And so if it is this three-dimensional dance, all of these not twos, then how amazing. I mean, truly, the cosmic light, the worldly, our internal light, dancing with all of those energies at all times, and yet dancing with us.
Yeah. I don't see that as inconsistent. It's hard for a human brain to hold all of that at once.
But not for a human spirit.
Right.
Thank you.
So you said we are light, and when we act with compassion, we're giving our light to others.
Well, we're transmitting the light.
Yeah, transmitting light to others. But the other is also light, right?
That's right.
So then,
The thing is, not everyone is connected with their light. Like I was saying, they're closed down.
so when I'm transmitting light to someone else, then it opens their capacity for their own light.
Yeah. Just think of it when you have an interaction with someone where you're really connecting. It has an impact on you, know?
Yeah.
And you naturally relax, you drop some of the protections that we have. You're really connected.
So then you're dropping into your own light,
To dropping into
but
your-
you're using the beings from, like a.
Yeah, to be able to let go.
Okay.
Oh, Marla, I'll get you next after, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, two things.
Get you.
One is, last night, Jean, we read about the difference between looking in a mirror and looking at the reflection. And I thought that was a beautiful distinction. You know, what we're to do to create light is to look in the reflection. But the other thing is, as you were reading, I was thinking, being a Buddhist is not something you can choose, but something you are, that all people are, in the sense that they're Buddha.
Uh-huh.
You're not talking about something
No,
that people can choose to do this or not.
no,
So,
no, in fact, yeah, I made a mention, it doesn't matter what, it can be a non-religious, whatever, it doesn't matter, you're right. Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. Was there something else?
no, that's for the two things.
Okay. Marla,
So, Katagiri Roshi talked about a place where we live in peace and harmony with others before we become individual beings and where we discover our own personalities and such. And this is a new one for me. And what it kind of sounds like, it's a green room before we enter the universe or something where we're waiting. Where does that come from? Is that part of Buddhist theology. It's almost like, I mean, if to the extreme, if I were Catholic, it would sound sort of like, the opposite of purgatory, but I don't know if you if you know what I'm talking about. Is there what is this place where be, before we become?
Yeah.
I don't know, I wasn't doing it before.
I'll try again, it's not doing it now.
Yeah, that's weird.
I look at that when he says before you're a human being, I see that, my way of looking at it, and maybe I'm missing something, but that's entirely possible. But it's more like it's the place, as a human being, what a human being is consists of, as opposed to like this, like being a Buddha, let's say it that way, is that the human has, as I said, they're shading themselves from the light. How do they do that? It's because they create an identity that they attach to. It's the attachment that's a problem. We make ourselves into these things conceptually, right? We're conceptualizing everything. And so I am a teacher. What does that mean? So all of a sudden that puts me in a box, but you don't know me any better by saying that, right? It's just a category, empty category. So, but we live day to day within these constructs of identity, of I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, that kind of stuff. So that's where we live generally and have conversations about and so forth and so on, as opposed to releasing all of that, getting beyond that and seeing each other as Buddhas, as something much, much, much more in depth and much more, much beyond kind of the paper cutout that we normally are or act in that realm. Does that make sense? So it's, when I think before, it's before you form up, like with the Suzuki Roshi example of dropping something. So you're walking along, you're doing your practice, you're doing helpful things and in a way that's spontaneous and blah, blah, blah. And then you drop something, and at the moment you drop, you have dropped back into your identity and started, criticizing or, this kind of thing. So then you're back in the individual realm. You've separated from the rest of the world. So that's how I understand it.
Okay, and I was probably typically being too literal and thinking that it was like prior to something else happening, that there was this peaceful place where everyone coexists. And so what I'm hearing you say is that this is a continuous process as we attach and unattach from our identities throughout.
That's exactly.
Okay, thank you.
And I think it comes and goes. You know what I mean? I don't think it's now I'm here forever. You have glimpses of that where you are really connected with the universe, and then you turn and it's gone.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you.
And we have Lisa.
Sounds good.
Lisa, hi.
Hi. So, human lives are precious. And we're grateful for being born into a human form. And part of the reason, I think, is because we have choice and awareness. And as I'm talking, I'm thinking, about something I heard decades ago, that a wonderful teacher stated, and he said, humans have consciousness. Can a bee step back and look at a hive and enjoy its creation? And So part of what I started thinking was about all sentient beings. And all sentient beings and all living beings are Buddha. Is that true or not? And wouldn't it be a terrific advantage to not have a prefrontal lobe or to not have, you know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, well, we're at a disadvantage in a way. I mean, if we didn't have these particular cognitive abilities, we wouldn't get into so much trouble. I mean, animals can be conditioned. Okay, now I'm thinking this through. Animals can be conditioned, but it's like, well, they don't have the ability to see their conditioning, do they? And they don't have the ability to transcend it. So I'm off on kind of a meander here. What I started thinking was, oh, what must it be like to not have, it's like, oh, not having opposable thumbs. So what if we didn't have this big brain? Just take that where you will. Oh.
Well, the point is, we do have a big brain, and so we do get into trouble. And we can work with that, Again, I don't think it's a 100% fix for everybody. I think it's more of a up and down sort of thing. You learn something and then you kind of forget, and then you come back and you remember, and then you kind of like that. But I always understood that the benefit of being human was a human could escape the suffering of coming back and being reincarnated. They could make choices in their life that could prevent that from happening. Of course, from the old scriptures, it's about learning about suffering and how to relieve suffering in others.
That's helpful, from that framework. But it works better if you truly believe in reincarnation, but it's good enough to believe in reincarnation in this life too.
Well, that's right. I was just going to say that the reincarnation issue is it's so interesting. The traditional ways of looking at it is, you come back in a lifetime, another lifetime as an animal or something, based on how you behaved, your comportment and your life prior. But in actuality, science is proving so much of this, that we are constantly created, recreated, or reconformed, I don't know, in minutes or seconds, considering the fact that cells are remade. I don't know how fast, numbers don't stick to me very well. But anyway, in a very short period of time. And so, you think about that, and then you think about all the causes and conditions that are working on us all the time, between those, just the physical aspect and then everything else, there is recreation all the time.
Well, so we're constantly regenerating ourselves. And we have that ability, and it's like, oh, and part of that ability is, making choices.
Yeah.
And being aware of what causes our suffering. And that could extend, as I'm thinking about regenerating ourselves and regenerating our brains through neuroplasticity, we also have some choices about how we use our bodies, whether we exercise. I mean, if we have that privilege, and what we eat. And that also has a regenerative effect. I mean, in every organ of our body. And then the interactions we choose. I don't know, maybe that's getting like too, too waffly, but it's kind of appealing to me that like that I'm constantly renewing myself in that way as an embodied experience. By the experiences I embody myself in too, and the experiences I am wholeheartedly immerse myself in. And each one leads to a new path. That's, it's infinite. Because each choice or each action, oh well, karma, what the heck?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, Dan.
Two things popped up for me. One was thinking about that Suzuki Roshi quote. I think you said it was Suzuki Roshi about dropping something. And how I was just thinking about Zazen and how like focusing on your breath and you're embodying it. And for me, it's like really feeling those feelings. And then when a thought comes along, that's like when you drop something. And for me, it's just so easy to then, like not necessarily worry about what I dropped, but just continue like going towards that. And so then it's like, I guess the metaphor would be like, okay, instead of worrying about what you dropped or continuing that thought story, like come back to right now and moving forward.
Yeah, I think that, if I can interrupt that.
Yeah.
That I think as much as anything, that when the thing is dropped, it may be criticism, but it's a distraction.
Yeah.
And so it's the whole thing about how long are you going to be distracted?
Exactly.
When do you want to come back?
Yeah.
And sometimes, just keep going.
Yeah.
Getting distracted.
And as much as I get distracted in Zazen, man, I get even more distracted in daily life. Like it's just nonstop.
Well, it's so easy.
Yeah.
Our whole culture is based on that.
Yeah.
It's distracting us all the time.
Yeah. And then the other thing was kind of related to what you were saying, Dean, asking about like transmitting light. I was listening to a podcast, and it was a scientist who had done some research with the Dalai Lama in the 90s. So it was like one of the first people who had kind of bridged that gap of researching the Dalai Lama. And he was saying that when he was going to meet him, he was sitting in this room waiting for him. The scientist was, and he was basically having anxiety, like panic attack, just so worried about what he was going to ask and what the interaction was going to be like. And right when the Dalai Lama walked in, like he said he felt more at peace than he's ever felt before. And all of that stuff just drifted away. And he said the way the Dalai Lama was just like brought ease to his whole being. And so that's kind of an example of like how I guess light can be transferred.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really good example. Yeah, well done.
I have a follow-up question to Marla's, because a light bulb seems to have gone off for her, and I'm like, I want that light bulb, and I didn't get it. And so Marla was asking, where is this place? And I immediately wondered, and I don't know why, and I don't want to get philosophical because philosophy really has nothing to do with Buddhism. But I wondered if that place is possibly, if I understand, Endra's net. Endra's net, as I understand it, and correct me please, Laurie, if I'm wrong, is a place of connecting with the energy of all beings, past, present, and future. Time is a construct.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we limit our thinking to human beings, to those which are physically born through the birthing process as of today, we're leaving a whole bunch of folks off of Endra's net.
Yeah.
And so I just wonder if Katagiri, how do you say the name?
Category.
Katagiri was somehow relating to that place of connection with, without the construct of time which we create. Understanding that all is existing at this.
I'm sure of it, yeah.
Okay, and so the light bulb goes off when I listen to his words about, there's this place we all hang out, I'm like, yeah, it's Andros Net.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a physical.
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not. No.
yeah.
Okay,
No, that's good, yeah.
thank you.
It's talking about, yeah, where your mind is. Yeah, that's so expansive. Okay. Rosemary.
Hi, so really quickly, so I had an actual experience of a snafu this morning. So, yeah, and and this is how I handled it. So Lynn was up for practice discussion. And so got her in the room, and Laurie was studying or whatever. And so I had the ability to message her when she was in the room to say, if she comes in a few minutes, fine, but if she doesn't, just come back to the main room. But she wasn't coming back. Lynn. So I'm like worried about Lynn, So I joined the room, and she's like meditating. She's like really got her eyes closed. So I was gonna leave, but then she opened her eyes, and I spoke to her. I said, I'm sorry, just come back, because then we were in Kinhin. So, she says it's okay. She comes back. So I'm doing Kinhin, and I'm like, oh, I should have just left her. She was like in her, but the lovely thing is that lasted for like 30 seconds. And what I remembered was something that Peg wrote about when she had a practice discussion with someone. She was really discouraged, Peg was, and thought, I can't offer anything. So that she had that thought. And then she said to herself, well, no disparaging Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. No disparaging. So I remembered that. And I said, you did what you did. And have your blessing in every step in Kinhin. That's where you are right now.
That's really great. It's really great. It's a great reframe.
Thank you.
And Lynn, I apologize. I got lost on the wrong sheet. I was on an old practice discussion sheet. So I was going to ask you, can I see you this afternoon? If you're going to be here. So I'll send you a note. Okay? All right. So I think we're done. Thank you all.